Tensions in the Middle East have escalated once again after Iran launched multiple ballistic missiles targeting U.S. military forces stationed in the region, marking the first direct missile attack on an American military base since President Donald Trump paused planned military strike against Tehran last week in order to allow diplomatic efforts to continue. Well, according to the U.S. Central Command, also known as CENTCOM, the attack took place. The missiles were launched by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, known as the IRGC, in what the U.S. military described as an attempted surprise attack. However, CENTCOM said that all the incoming ballistic missiles were successfully intercepted by U.S. air defense system, preventing any damage or casualties. And the command added that American forces remain on high alert and are maintaining a high state of readiness across the region. Iran, however, claimed that its missiles targeted a U.S. military base in Jordan. Tehran has not officially responded to the U.S. claim that every missile was intercepted. The latest exchange has ended a brief pause in hostilities between Washington and Tehran that followed weeks of military escalation. The ceasefire had raised hopes that diplomatic talks could resume, but the latest developments have once again increased fears of a wider regional conflict. The missile attacks came just hours after U.S. President Donald Trump hosted Israel Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at the White House. Iran was a key topic during the discussions as both the leaders reviewed the security situation in the Middle East and discussed future strategy. Following Iran's missile launch, the United States and Saudi Arabia carried out coordinated airstrikes against Iran-backed militia positions in eastern Iraq. And according to CENTCOM, the strikes targeted logistics hubs, weapon storage facilities and other military sites used by armed groups linked to the IRGC. The U.S. military said that the operation was launched in response to more than 30 drone attacks carried out over the past 72 hours against American troops and Saudi energy infrastructure. CENTCOM warned that Iran and its proxy groups must immediately stop attacking U.S. forces or face further military action. Saudi Arabia confirmed its participation in the operation, stating that while it does not seek further escalation, it will respond firmly to any threat against its security or energy facilities. U.S. officials also revealed that attacks by Iran-backed militias have sharply increased this year. Between February and April 2026 alone, more than 600 attempted attacks targeted American personnel and military facilities in Iraq. Although many of all those attacks failed, Washington say that they demonstrate the growing threat posed by Iran-backed groups operating across the region. Adding to the tension, Saudi Arabia reported intercepting several drones targeting petroleum facilities in its eastern region. Saudi authorities alleged that the drones were launched by Iran-backed militias based in Iraq, while Iraqi officials said that they were investigating the claims and reiterated that Iraqi territory should not be used to launch attacks on neighboring nations. Meanwhile, Iran-backed Houthi rebels in Yemen claimed responsibility for targeting a Saudi oil tanker in the Red Sea. The group said that the attack was part of its campaign against Saudi shipping, and maritime monitoring agencies also reported explosions near a commercial tanker. Although no casualties or major damage were reported, and the Strait of Hormuz remains at the center of the ongoing dispute. Nearly 20% of the world's traded oil passes through this narrow waterway, making any disruption a major concern for global energy supplies. And the latest escalation has already affected financial markets, with oil prices rising sharply on fears that further conflict could disrupt shipping in the region. Brent crude gained more than 4%, while U.S. crude also recorded significant gains during early Asian trading. And earlier in the day, President Donald Trump warned Iran that the U.S. could resume military operations if Tehran failed to reach an agreement with Washington. Well, speaking in an interview, Donald Trump said that if negotiations collapsed, the U.S. would finish the job. He also claimed that key Iranian infrastructure, including bridges and power plants, could be destroyed quickly if military action resumed. The renewed fighting comes after months of rising tensions between the U.S. and Iran. Well, since military operations began earlier this year, the conflict has expanded beyond direct confrontation to include attacks by Iran-backed militia groups across Iraq and the wider Middle East. The conflict has also become increasingly controversial within the U.S., and rising military costs, higher fuel prices, and concerns about a prolonged regional war have led to growing political debate in Washington. According to the recent Pentagon figures, at least 624 U.S. military personnel have been wounded since operations against Iran began earlier this year, with hundreds of those injuries linked to Operation Epic Fury, the joint U.S.-Israel campaign. And despite the latest military exchange, diplomatic efforts have not completely ended. However, the fresh missile attack by Iran and the retaliatory strikes carried out by the US and Saudi Arabia have once again pushed the region into a dangerous phase. And with tensions rising, global attention is now focused on whether both the sides return to negotiations or move towards a broader military confrontation. For now, security forces across the Middle East remain on high alert as fears of further escalation continues to grow. That's all for now. Stay tuned to the Savera for more updates. Do like, comment and subscribe to the channel.